Seriously, what is wrong with me, guys? I bought another blade. What's really weird is I actually kind of like it. In fact, I think it's my new daily driver. So this is going to be a much needed therapy session for me as I go over all its pros and its cons. Now, just a little note, we are a Best Buy affiliated channel and they did give me a voucher to review a laptop. This video, it is not a sponsored review. I chose the blade and Best Buy, they haven't reviewed this video or given feedback at all. Let's start with gaming performance. The good news here is that the Blade 14 has a full wattage RTX 5070, which is actually quite rare. As you can see from our performance breakdown, the Blade's GPU averages 105 watts during gaming. This is very good. In time spy, it comes out second out of all 14-inch gaming laptops. It's only beaten out by our Zephyrus G14, our one has a 5070 Ti. The bad news though is that the 5070 GPU only has 8GB of VRAM and the Blade, it has a high resolution panel to drive, 2880 by 1800. More pixels means more GPU power is needed and more VRAM is needed. 8GB, it is not enough for modern demanding titles, at least not at ultra settings. Monster Hunter Wilds, it clearly demonstrates this. Look what happens at ultra settings on the Blade with its 8GB of VRAM. It gets crushed at difficult parts of the game, as you can see by its 1% lows. The G14 with its 12GB of VRAM, it's actually playable. And keep in mind, we tested these games at 2560 by 1600, so that we can standardize across all laptops. If we tested at the Blade or G14's native resolutions, things would be even worse. Now, this is not the end of the world. If you step down to high settings, the 8GB of VRAM issue, it kind of goes away. But we do expect that newer titles will continue to increase their VRAM usage, so this bottleneck just kind of sucks. Look, overall, for demanding games, if you want to make use of this laptop's fast refresh rate display, expect to run on medium settings. In less demanding titles like say Cyberpunk, you can run at Ultra. Same goes for Forza, no problems running at Ultra there too. During gaming, the Blade, it feels very warm. It also has loud fan noise. It's a small laptop with powerful components inside, it kind of comes with the territory. If you're considering the Zephyrus G14 instead of the Blade, that laptop it does perform better as I showed you, but it feels much hotter to the touch. That is of course unless you run the G14's fans at max, which by the way are so loud your neighbour is probably going to call the cops on you. Back on the Blade 14, you can game on balance mode. That does lower the fan noise quite a bit, but your frame rates drop pretty substantially on balance mode. You see, it feeds around 20 watts less combined power to the CPU and GPU. For creative apps, we're going to use our own tests for Premiere Pro as we just don't find Puget's match what we're actually experiencing right here in the real world. When exporting a video, the Blade 14 is not a strong performer amongst its competitors. It is handily beaten out by the Zephyrus G14. Looking at a warp stabilization test, the MacBooks come out on top. I believe that this is because of Apple's fast single-core speeds. In Blender, which tests 3D rendering, we once again see a big win for the Zephyrus G14 with its RTX 5070 Ti. Look, the Blade 14, it isn't bad for creative workloads. If you're editing basic videos for YouTube, it's certainly going to get the job done. But the Zephyrus and the MacBook Pros, they're just better. When it comes to CPU-only performance, the Blade 14's Ryzen 9 365, it does fall behind the G14 with AMD's own Ryzen AI 9 HX370, what a mouthful. And it is behind laptops with Intel's Ultra 9 285H. It's also behind Apple's latest M5 chip and way behind their M4 Pro chip. That was for Cinebench, by the way, which tests raw CPU power. In Geekbench, which tests real-world tasks, we see Apple and Intel pull further ahead. Looking at power draw under a max CPU load, the Blade is middle of the pack. You can see here the ridiculous efficiencies of Apple's M-series chips. If you're just doing performance tasks that only hit the CPU, the Blade feels a little warm but not too hot. Fan noise was also pretty decent too. Now for light use, like writing the script for this video, I was really impressed with the Blade 14, seriously. Its fans were very quiet, either dead silent or close to it. And the laptop, it felt very cool to the touch. The G14 on the other hand felt much hotter than this laptop. And surprisingly, the larger Blade 16, which is over there, it has the same CPU as this laptop, but it has a little more fan noise in light use. Let's switch gears and talk about battery life. It is garbage. Bad battery life is a tradition of Razer laptops, and they certainly aren't breaking it here. Amongst 14-inch high-performance laptops, the Blade, it is the worst, a couple of hours at most. If you want a gaming laptop with excellent battery life, Asus's Tough A14 or HP's Omen Transcend 14, that is your answer. Now, if you thought the Blade's bad battery life was because it doesn't throttle its performance when unplugged, you'd be dead wrong. it does drop its performance a lot when you pull out the power. Let's talk about the rest of the laptop. The Blade 14, it looks really good and feels very sturdy and premium. I like how there is no light bleed around the keys from their backlight, it just makes the laptop look very clean and stylish. This year the Blade 14 is a bit slimmer, which I think adds to how it looks. And because it is so slim, I never felt the edge of the laptop cut into my wrist. Size-wise, the Blade is a little larger than the Zephyrus G14 and around the same volume as the MacBook Pro 14. Its black finish, it does pick up fingerprints a bit, but it's not the worst out there. Take good care of your Blade though. I have accidentally chipped a black one before and you do see silver underneath. The Blade's weight, it is fine for what it is definitely a portable laptop, even when you factor in its charger. The display is great. It's a stunning OLED panel with excellent color accuracy, it has good enough brightness and 120Hz refresh rate. I really like that it has a resolution of 2880 by 1800. Small text just looks super sharp. But as I said, the trade-off is that it's a tad harder for the GPU to drive than a lower resolution panel. The one thing I do wish is that this laptop had a slightly larger display, say 14.5 inches. Larger screens, they're just more immersive for gaming, and I don't think that the laptop would have had to be much bigger either. They could have redesigned it to reduce its large bezel below the screen. Lastly, there is G-Sync, there is Advanced Optimus, and I didn't detect any noticeable PWM flickering. The Blade 14's keyboard is very quiet to type on, and it is much improved this year. It doesn't feel nearly as low travel as the prior generations. That being said, the Blade 16's keyboard is more comfortable. Its key press just feels deeper. The keys of the 14, they're also noticeably smaller than the 16. Take a look at how small that backslash key is. Because the keys are smaller, there is more spacing between each one, which I really don't like. The up-down arrow keys, they also continue to be ridiculously small. Razer, just give me regular size keys, please. One thing I do like is that the Blade 14 doesn't have that column of special keys on the right side like my 16 does. I always mispress the mic mute button. Moving along, like all Blades, if you hold function, the special keys light up. I find this very useful. Overall, I'd give the typing experience a 7 out of 10. The trackpad is decent for a mechanical one. It actually worked, unlike the trackpad on my first Blade 16, which literally had to be replaced because of that issue. Unfortunately, all Razer trackpads, they're huge and they have dreadful palm rejection. The cursor just jumps to somewhere you don't intend to, which absolutely drives me nuts. If you're doing real work on this laptop, just get a mouse. Ports are very good. You get two USB 4.0 ports that both support charging, one on either side of the laptop, which is just really convenient. Both do go via the iGPU. If you want a direct connection to the dedicated GPU, you'll need to use the HDMI 2.1 port. There are also two handy USB-A 10GB ports, a headphone mic combo jack, and a fast microSD card reader. Continuing with the Blade's excellent connectivity, there is Wi-Fi 7. The speakers, they do sound really good, but I'd really like more volume out of them. Take a listen. Here's how the Blade 14's 1080 webcam looks and sounds in the best possible lighting conditions. The colours actually look really good. And now here's what it looks like if you're using dimmer room lighting. In terms of upgradability on the Blade 14, the SSD, the Wi-Fi card, they are upgradable, the battery is replaceable, but unfortunately the memory is soldered. Finally, Razer laptops, they have a lot of niggling issues. The Blade 14 had less of them than my 16, but it still had some. I already talked about the dreadful palm rejection. Also, 9 times out of 10, when I close the Blade's lid and I put it in my backpack, it just didn't sleep and it just sits there and cooks itself. I know that this is a pretty common issue with Windows laptops, but guys, I promise you it is far worse on Razer's laptops. It happens on both of mine. And as mentioned, on battery, this laptop just gets pretty slow, which kind of makes it nearly unusable as a portable laptop. Just look at my keyboard lag while I'm using Word Online. This doesn't happen on other laptops. And of course, if you buy a Razer, their support, it's an absolute clown show. I have a video out on this, which I will link below. If you want to have a laugh at my absolute misery, watch it after this one. Moral of the story, guys, only buy a Razer laptop if you have a backup computer. So here's where I stand after this therapy session. Even with all its issues, sometimes you just can't help what you like. And I like using the Blade 14. I look forward to picking it up each day because I like the way it looks. I like how cool to the touch it feels in light use. I like how portable it is. I like its screen. I like that I can game on it. I like its port layout and its pricing. It's actually pretty good this year. I bought this one on a huge sale for $900 off at Best Buy. Make sure to check the price tracker on our website bestlaptop.deals, that's where I found this great sale. Now, if you're not an idiot and you're not the kind of person who keeps going back to an ex that just treats you badly, then here's what you should actually buy. If you want the most performance out of a 14-inch laptop, the Zephyrus G14 has a slightly more powerful CPU and options for a much better GPU. It does feel significantly warm to the touch though, much warmer than the Blade 14. If you want the most comfortable gaming laptop with the longest battery life, then the Tough A14, it's the one to get. It may not look as pretty as the Blade, but it's the more sensible choice. If you do want pretty and battery life, the Omen Transcend 14, it's for you. Well, that's all I got for you. Make sure to like and subscribe, it makes my dearest mother very proud. I haven't actually said that for a while and she sent me an email to say where did it go, so it's back.